Okay, I make this video in English also. This I have not videotaped many videos in English recently because it's not my native language. I have a hard time to tell what I think in English. But I just try to open something in this what I've been thinking about this or subject of you having a platform that will. This is a military video, as in for platforms that will launch weapons, as in what it represents and what it means, and to especially focus on attacked helicopters, and these helicopters that used to carry some weapon platform, as in what you do with a weapon platform is that you want to move it from place E to place B. And that's basically the purpose of you having the platform. And that how I think that because of the development of many kind of missiles, the helicopter as a platform is not as prominent as it was in the past. As in the past, when there was some more old-fashioned techniques or technologies in missiles that you need to have a line of sight on the object, as in it was harder to shoot the helicopters down, and if there was some local area that you know of or you have getting rid of or some short-range air defense, there you had a better time to use your helicopter, and the helicopter was a platform that was very mobile, that you can kind of push some kind of a pressure on some flanks or some places and so shift them on different places with relatively short time in close area proximity, as in, and then use those rockets or missiles or whatever weapons you have, as in those platforms are only to carry the weapon platform to somewhere and use it. But because of now, because how missiles have these autonomous capabilities and they are going to develop them even further, it's going to, in my opinion, be redundant as a platform. As in, I'm not saying it's entirely bad, but there are some kind of problems with helicopters, and it's logistical that you have to have lots of fuel and you have lots of maintenance in them, and they are expensive. The problem in here, what I think, how much of attack helicopter cost, as in these prices I have seen people buying them with something like 60 million or over 60 million with one only. It's a quite lot of money, and it's not that much more that you have to pay for a fighter jet. And which would you, or I would rather say, is more prominent in future, fighter jet, a very this kind of modern one, or a modern attack helicopter. There are no capabilities, in my knowledge, not even that they are going to add on any attack helicopters that will make them kind of relevant. As in there is this autonomy missile. It means that you can launch it without line of sight, and you can even launch it so that the missile will autonomously. They have hunt and seek algorithms. They have artificial intelligence. They have their own sensors, and in some cases even some millimeter wave radars or what you tell, and these kind of systems that you can launch a missile, and the missile will automatically hunt and seek some target. And they are very, for example, IRIS-T missiles are very agile. They can make very kind of these short U-turns, or this very quick angle turns, this kind of like this. And for this kind of capabilities that the missile, it can detect a helicopter, the helicopter will have very hard time to run out of it. And one part of this is that they use a lot of these maritime patrol helicopters that can cost even 120 million one. It's a very expensive piece of equipment, but many navies are always carrying at least one frigate usually carries one patrol helicopter. And these patrol helicopters, they want to dip the sonar to the sea, but then the sonar has something like 10 or 20 kilometers range to detect the submarine, and they want to then drop a light torpedo there to hunt the submarine. And I think this will become problematic in the future because it has been so long that they use these maritime patrol helicopters, these frigates, that they have been developed these countermeasures for them. As in, especially the German, they can install these IRIS-T air defense missiles to these submarines. As in, if the submarine somehow knows or even doesn't know that there are a maritime patrol helicopter even near, and these IRIS-T missiles can have way longer range than even these light torpedoes or even these sonobuoys, these what you drop, these sonars, drop sonars, and then what it means that they can destroy the helicopter, and where the helicopter can evade in open sea. There is no any terrain to evade under, and the helicopter is quite slow target, it turns slow and goes like this, and it's a big target, and when you launch it from, suddenly there goes a submarine that the maritime patrol helicopter have not detected yet, launch a missile, and it seeks the helicopter and is destroyed. There is 120 million gone, basically, that you use to hunt the submarine. In this case, I suppose the prominent way to hunt submarines in the future will more likely be another submarines, or in inner sea areas mini submarines, or then these submarine drones that can also be autonomous and carry torpedoes, for example. So these torpedo mines also are very prominent and cost efficient. There already exist torpedo mines that you anchor them, especially in some sort. You can probably do them in some open sea areas that they don't anchor to the surf to the bottom, but they will anchor themselves in there somewhere in the open sea, and if they detect a submarine, they will launch a torpedo. They contain one torpedo. They are torpedo mines, and these kind of torpedo mines can be very dangerous for submarines if they do not manage to detect them. And even they would manage to detect them, they will somehow have to avoid them or get rid of them, or then they need to avoid the torpedo or get rid of it somehow when they launch the torpedo. So that is, I think, this kind of way of thinking, that when you think that how do you want to affect the submarines, maybe in the future the very prominent way to do it, and even yet I think it already is this, to use undersurface equipment, as in this maritime patrol helicopter might not be that cost efficient way to use resources or funds to affect submarines. And these frigates can also carry these torpedoes. If there is no reason why a frigate cannot carry a torpedo mine, there is no reason why a frigate cannot carry these underwater autonomous these submarines, these mini autonomous, some small submarines, but they are not yet developed. They are just developing them, and it's a technology that is being developed, and it's not fully developed, but it's the way I see the future going in this underwater warfare kind of this anti-submarine warfare. But to speak about this, what it means to have a platform where you launch weapons, and what it means, what I kind of mean, that it doesn't matter what the platform is anymore as much as in the past. The helicopter was prominent because it mattered how you can launch them and how you can move the platform. But nowadays it, I suppose, don't matter that much, because what is the difference if you shoot kertain missile with a helicopter, an infantry fighting vehicle, or even a tank, or even some kind of or any other platform. If it's small missile enough, it can be also launched by foot. As in, foot soldiers can carry these kind of missile launchers, and they can shoot missiles. So it doesn't really matter, do you shoot it as a foot soldier, or do you do it by helicopter? Or does an infantry fighting vehicle shoot the missile, or does it be a helicopter? It doesn't really matter, because it's the platform only, where the platform, the capability comes from that you can move from place to place, and helicopter can move in air. But it doesn't matter do you move it in air or not, because the missile will go up, and then it have these autonomous hunt and seek capabilities. After the missile has been launched, it's the same missile no matter what platform you use to launch it. That's my point, that it starts to matter more in modern times and in the future, I think, that what kind of missile do you launch than from where is the platform that launches it, or what platform it is. The only limiting factor is that smaller missiles can be launched with all platforms, even by foot, but if the missile is larger, you need to have larger platform. And for that kind of platform, these rockets or missiles that are larger, this thing like M27 or HIMARS, these heavy rocket launchers that have these modular cassette systems are very prominent, because there is no reason why you cannot launch, for example, something like a naval strike missile, or something like this kind of anti-ship missiles, or this kind of cruise missiles with something like HIMARS. If it's just fit in the cassette there, you can launch it. doesn't matter. You can also launch probably AMRAAMs, IRIS-T. This is a multi-launch platform, this kind of a HIMARS kind of a thing. If you build it like so, you can launch all missiles with it, as long as it fits there. It's the same as this vertical launch system, VLS, cells. That all missiles that are going there, you can launch with them. They are compatible. And then if they are smaller missiles, you can fit 4 in one slot. It's similar than this HIMARS system. That there is no reason why you cannot park HIMARS near shore and shoot cruise missiles or anti-ship missiles to frigates. This with HIMARS, for example. That you don't need anymore this specialized equipment. You can streamline your production. You can streamline this logistic, and you can streamline these platforms. That you have only one platform to launch it with. Where do you need the helicopter if you have HIMARS and you are in a if you have this land access somewhere? And if the HIMARS have longer range, if I can have some range, if HIMARS launches a JASM, for example, if you have a JASM, Joint Attack Strike Missile type of missile, or any cruise missile that can be launched by HIMARS, it can have lots of range. So where does it matter that where you launch it from? It's dangerous still. It doesn't even matter do you use a fighter jet to launch it. But these fighter jets, why they are good in my opinion, is because you can use them to glide bomb. And you can use them to shoot cruise missiles outside of the range of these systems. That these helicopters are close range system. That you are always vulnerable when you go them. And if there happens to be some very high-tech missiles that probably are not even developed now, they can in future be even more developed missiles. And what it comes to is that when you develop a missile with keeping in mind that you can update the software, you don't have to update the hardware in the missile. It becomes more efficient when you have new software, you have coded it very more efficiently, and the artificial intelligence part of the missile have been coded, updated. You just update the software to all the missiles, and suddenly their behavior becomes more like better. So in that kind of environment, you can just update the missile, and the latest update software in this missile, even if it would be a bit older missile, if there is not some kind of internal or some hardware changes that you want to make a new model, it's also viable if there is a reason for it. For example, one reason would be if you have invented some kind of coating that makes it resistant to laser weapons, or some kind of different kind of engines, different kind of fuel type, or any kind of changes or aerodynamics, or if you want to include the missile to carry another missiles, it's entirely viable for a missile to shoot these anti-missile rockets or anti-missile, these air defense missiles that try to shoot the cruise missile down with cruise missiles' own missiles. It's entirely viable that they carry their own missiles, that they shoot the anti-air missiles down. And it's entirely viable also that a missile even have something like electrical warfare capabilities, that they can detect and they can jam, they have their own radars, they can have start to have these kind of fighter jet type of qualities, that they start to resemble not wingman planes, but resemble these small fighter jets that are in the end suiciding themselves as a missile, as in this going to explode somewhere. And they can also carry multiple warheads and like whatever you want to design them with. But the point is that the launch platform can be always same. It doesn't have to, like similar compatibility that AMRAAM, you can launch AMRAAM from ground, from NASAMS or these different systems. You can launch AMRAAM from fighter jet, you can launch AMRAAM from probably from submarines, at least IRIS-T you can, and you can launch them from these frigates. You have all platforms possible that you can use this AMRAAM missile with. There is no reason why you cannot make AMRAAM to be compatible with something like HIMARS. There is absolutely no reason. You have to just design it so. And you can make, then HIMARS will become this kind of a multi-platform that you always want to have, and it can be modified with changing the cassette. Now it's an anti-air battery, air battery. Now you modify it, it's a cruise missile shooting platform. Now you change the cassette, it's an anti-ship platform. Now you change the cassette, it's a rocket platform that uses these multiple rockets with some kind of area effects. This what it's normally used for. That you can use the HIMARS with all different kind of missiles, and you can add these different missiles that you use with different platforms also to HIMARS. You can make it this kind of universal platform that, for example, if European Union would make this kind of like they have this thing like Eurocopter. If they would make Euro missile system, jotain, I don't know what it would be mean. Jotain something things, something like Euro heavy missile launching platform or something. I don't know. Whatever they will come up with, or Euro missiles or Euro. Let's just say they will make Euro HIMARS or something, that they can launch all of their missiles with it that fit in it. But what you cannot launch with HIMARS, you cannot launch heavy air defense missiles, for example, and you cannot launch any ballistic missiles because they are too large. You need to them something like larger VLC platforms or something like very specialized 10x10 trucks or something like that. What you need them, but they are very specialized objects, these very larger missiles that you don't add them in this normal equipment. But my point is that the helicopter is just a platform that you move around, these weapon systems that you install in it, and helicopter is too light platform that they cannot carry, in my knowledge, something like cruise missiles, and they cannot carry these heavier weapons, and they have to come to close range, that there are close range weapon moving platform that can move, and it's quite this kind of it's not that agile anymore. So in the future it can very much possibly be that helicopters have a very hard time to cope with. It can even be an autonomous drone that suddenly explodes near the helicopter and some shrapnel hit it and it goes down. That there are so many these kind of threats to helicopter because you have to bring them close, and what it means and what it represents, you have to hide the helicopter and you will still end. It is very possible in the future, if you have an attack helicopter like Apache, you will use it so that you will launch them, your weapon platforms, from outside of line of sight, because you have very hard time to come to line of sight, because it's a big target, it's easy to see when it's out there in this open. This you can try to do this kind of a peek and shoot kind of things, but it leaves it vulnerable, and especially in an environment where there are very how do you say, very advantage get this, or very what you say, very developed, good development of these futuristic missile capabilities that are autonomous. They can hunt and seek autonomously. You don't need to because it's programmed so good. It have artificial intelligence. It's autonomous. It's coded to detect these helicopters and seek them and then explode on them. As in this, you can only, if you even suspect that there's a helicopter, you can launch multiple of these missiles, because these missiles probably won't cost as much if you compare it to the helicopter. Even one helicopter, this kind of expensive attack helicopters that comes down, it's a very big loss, because if you buy it with 60 millions, you can think what others you can do with it, and then you need to maintenance them and everything like that. So it might not be the most cost-effective platform, not the Martime Butler helicopter and not the attack helicopter. And then the tilt-rotor helicopter most surely is for these armies that have lots of fundings to spend, that also want to probably use something like attack helicopter because they have lots of funding. But if you are limited by low amount of fundings, you don't want to have anything like that. You just skip them. And with that money you skip these kind of things, you buy other things. You basically buy weapons. You can have more missiles, you can have more something like tanks or something like equipment for infantry or something. Most likely you should probably spend it to something like artillery cells, something like precision good artillery cells, something like anti-air missiles or something like cruise missiles or something like that, or this power approach that lets you kind of maintain this power stance in the field. As in these helicopters, they're kind of they're only platforms that you carry the weapons with. They can do something locally, but I start to see the helicopters at modern times very vulnerable, to become very fast, very vulnerable. There are so many threats that and they are a very hard time to carry any kind of arms. If there are some kind of a self-protection system that the helicopters can carry, that are very like prominent, it can help in this, but still they can get overwhelmed. As in this, that there are many different kind of threats, and this can be overwhelmed probably. I suppose that this self-protection system that these tanks can have, infantry fighting vehicles can have them, so why not these helicopters can have them? Of course they can have them. There are some different kind of things that can probably overwhelm them, that they cannot simultaneously, for example, take care of all this kind of target. There are some kind of drones for, there are some kind of many different kind of anti-air missiles, there are different kind of threats, and they can even be as ridiculous that I wouldn't even begin to think that it's not possible, but it's probably hard to do, but you might as well shoot a helicopter with something like precision-guided artillery shell or something different like this, and if the helicopter does this kind of peaks that they come open to have line of sight, then anything can shoot. Autocannons, then even a tank gun can shoot them, and these kind of things. So it becomes very vulnerable. These autocannons are very much like this airburst gun or this AHER type of munitions that will spread this kind of this shotgun bullet type of shots that they will seek the target and then explode in a shotgun type of way to explode pellets in front of the target. These helicopters, if you manage to shoot with autocannon a helicopter with this kind of rounds, it will probably break them very, very bad. And this, in this kind of environment, it won't probably help that you have this self-protection system. So I really don't know that much, but how it represents to me that can very easily end up being something that you used lots of excess fundings on, and then this excess funding doesn't pay off as well because you can have more of these weapons that you would launch with the helicopter without having the helicopter, and just launch these weapons with some other platforms like HIMARS or these infantry fighting vehicles or something like that. This helicopter cannot even carry HIMARS rockets or anything that you could possibly begin to think that you might be able to launch with something like futuristic HIMARS, because at least in my opinion right now you cannot launch cruise missiles or anti-ship missiles with HIMARS. You cannot, or AMRAAMs, you probably cannot shoot them with HIMARS. But there is absolutely no reason in my opinion why you would not, or why it would be impossible. You can most surely at least modify the HIMARS so that it can shoot any missile. It doesn't matter, because the missile just leaves it just shoots the missile, the platform, and then the missile autonomy will take care of the rest. That there is some target, and they can, most of the missiles they will be produced so that they are autonomous units. And all of what matters in this thing is not the platform but the missile itself. And for this reason I am reasoning that the importance of attack helicopters there will diminish, and the importance of maritime patrol helicopters will also diminish. But the importance of something like these maritime patrol aircraft will probably not diminish, because they have longer range, they have this kind of they are at higher, they can go with higher these elevations, and they can probably be outside of range of these submarine IRST missiles or something, and they have other functions too, because you can use these to probably carry with I suppose there is no reason why you cannot shoot cruise missiles with them, with these maritime patrol aircraft. They are big aircraft, they are expensive, but I suppose that they are not in the same way starting to, in my opinion, be not as efficient as these. As in, if you are some kind of you have some kind of army that is very dependent on these sea areas, then these maritime patrol aircraft can be very efficient and good use of the funding. But the maritime patrol, these helicopters are starting to staggering in words. But these maritime patrol helicopters, they might not represent this cost effectiveness, that the cost effectiveness might not really be there. So this is basically the video, and that's what I wanted to say about this. And another thing to ponder is this artificial intelligence development, that where do it leads to, because it's a very dangerous subject. And when you start to have these autonomous weapons, they most likely will hopefully be very limited on options that what they can do, what kind of autonomous decisions they can do, that they are very limited range of decisions, and these kind of you can start to hope to generate this kind of self-learning artificial intelligence or algorithms. It will become dangerous very fast, because it is the usual science fiction, this threat that the artificial intelligence will turn against humans or do something unacceptable. So that's the reason they are developing now and having this thought process to develop these artificial intelligence armies or something. It's very, very dangerous subject. And to go that road, if it's not done responsibility, then it represents a lot of things that can go wrong. But it also represents a lot of possibilities, and those possibilities can very much mean that the attack helicopter in its normal sense will become somewhat outdated, as in there can be a smaller one that humans don't control. That is autonomous small helicopter, that is drone. This kind of drone helicopters that you cannot jam or interfere because they don't use wireless connectivity, because they are offline. They do their own autonomous decisions, and that becomes dangerous, this kind of things, thought process. But it can very much go to that direction that they at least want to develop something like that, and you can make them cheaper than these Apache type of large platforms, because for example, the engine in these larger helicopters, they will become very expensive. And the helicopter as a platform, at least this attack helicopter, is all what is going on there. At least they are holding a very big premium. So I see this helicopters as something like logistic tool, and even then, when you use a helicopter as a logistic tool, it's always better if you can do this in this bird this. If you can do ground logistics, if you can use something like normal trucks, or even something like pickup trucks, or something like, or even something as simple as these civilian vans, or something like anything basically that is very cost effective, uses relatively low amount of fuel. And my favorite this logistic vehicle is Bandwagon, this Swedish Bandwagon. I really much like it because it's all-terrain vehicle. It goes in snow, it goes in swamp, it goes in everywhere you want, and it's very cheap, it's very simple, it's civilian object, it doesn't have weapons, it only have weapons if you install a weapon manually to the platform. Then you can also take that weapon out and just install it in there in the ground when you take position. So it's this kind of civilian tool. It can be made as civilian price. It's not entirely army tool. You can also buy it in civilian use and use it. It don't have weapons. Basically, it's not a weapon platform. You can only install a weapon to the roof, but it's this all-terrain vehicle, and you can have lots of logistics going on with it, and all these kind of logistics that you can manage to do with your normal ground forces. It's always more cost-effective than if you would be carrying heavy helicopters, but it's very good capability to have in these medium type of armies. If you have very, very small army like Baltic states, then it can be, you need to compromise something to start to build a helicopter fleet. But if you even a medium type of army, or a bit bigger armies than many of these countries in Europe that have something like 5 million to 10 million citizens, they have these armies that they use helicopters, because helicopters give you function that there are areas where there are no roads, that you cannot have this kind of normal logistics. Then you can do evacuation missions, then you can have logistic missions in these areas, but they are not attack helicopters. They use these civilian type of helicopters to that kind of role, and they can evacuate, and they can bring troops to some very dangerous positions. They can fly over these mountains and everything like that. But you cannot do. For example, with Bandwagon, you cannot go over mountains. They cannot pass this kind of like something like Switzerland or Austria, these Alps, or something like. And in Sweden there can be these mountains, and especially in Norway there is. But the Bandwagon still, they can go in very remote areas where normal road vehicles cannot, because they can go off-road very prominently. And in off-road there can also be amphibious. They have this kind of terrain capabilities that lets them carry logistic to very unexpected locations. What is a logistic vehicle? It is the same way than what I mean, these weapon platforms. It is a mean to carry something from place E to B. In the same way, weapon platform, whatever it is a means to carry the weapon to place A to B. And a weapon is something that you want to use from place A to B to hit that target in B. It doesn't matter how you do the hit. If it's a line of sight weapon, you have the line of sight, but it's more advantageous to you if you can use it indirectly. As in indirect fire is very important, and these helicopters will become very vulnerable, how I see things, to different kind of indirect capabilities that will only be more advanced in the future. As in, what is the role of attack helicopters in futuristic armies? Is it a good investment of funds to it, or will them become very vulnerable assets that they are so expensive that you don't want to lose them, and then you have to use them very sparingly or very carefully? And I have seen these kind of videos where they fly with something like mm-8 helicopter, and they only use it like artillery. They load them with 70mm rockets, and then they just go there, fly, and then they shoot it like artillery salvo in indirect way, and then they fly back. Because they are so afraid to close the target to shoot them with line of sight. Because they are afraid to have something man-bad or something shoot them. So they don't go there. They just use it indirect fire. They shoot this kind of a indirect way, that in the same way that you would be using a BM-21 or something like HIMARS. That what is the point of you using helicopter in the same way than artillery? The more cost-efficient way to use artillery is to just use artillery. You don't need helicopter for to it. But the usefulness in helicopter, I see this. The stilt rotor is of course the better way to do it, because it's have this function that it goes faster in very easy. But then this it's not necessarily something that, again, if you are limited by funds, it's of course very easy to see, like larger armies, they want the stilt rotor capabilities. But these medium type of armies that are struggling with funds, and they always have to make hard decisions that where do you use the funds, it's very easy to see why they skipped the attack helicopters even in the past. And even in the future they might have even less reasons to use them, especially if there is no development that this makes them suddenly very viable. But this tilt rotor is another thing that they might think that it's currently too expensive, but in the future, if the tilt rotor technology becomes more common use, the prices can drop, of course. But only then, if the prices drop, it becomes viable option for them. But some armies like this medium, or this, they're not even medium, they are very small armies if you compare it to these really large armies, but that have lots of funding. But these smaller countries in Europe that are still having some funding in the defense industry, that it might be too much for them, this tilt rotor. They would like to have that capability. It would clearly boost their logistic, this aerial helicopter logistic, but it's just too much, and they will just use these normal helicopters because they are cheaper. They can have something like 4 of them in the price of one tilt rotor. So if you only use 20 helicopters in your armies, do you want to have 5 tilt rotors or 20 helicopters? So that's the question that you are asking yourself when you kind of think like that you are very limited amount of fundings. And the helicopter is never a main focus point in that kind of armies. The infantry is, and the ground force is, and then they have something that they will focus on. And for example, some country that would be, for example, be Iceland, it's very easy to see why they focus on the navy. And then they would have very low focus on infantry, but some land area will have usually very heavy focus on ground force, and some inland area, of course, don't have navy at all, and they usually have some kind of focus points in air force. And this air force, they can just have different kind of opinions what they want, but these fighter jets, in my opinion, are very prominent way. They are there because if you think about it as a platform, what did the fighter jet represent? The fighter jet have a lot of more powerful engine than these helicopters, and they have lots of more range than helicopters, and they can carry these weapons that the helicopters cannot. So as a weapon platform, it's superior. It can shoot from longer range, it moves faster, it's more mobile as entity, so it can move faster from place A to B, and then it can shoot more dangerous weapons, and in many ways more dangerous than these attack helicopters. So that is my reasoning in it. And now I will end this video, and I hope there's something to think about, and excuse of my very bad English, so that I cannot represent this in the way that I would really want to, but I am struggling and trying to say this what I want to say in English, that this, because the Finnish audience is so small, and even nobody would listen even these my English videos, but I have some ideas of this how these things go in this military industry, and this I have seen these many of these opinions of these experts in military. It's very big trend now, this military. It's in the upward trends, this military thinking, and these people are having lots of this kind of now this attention. So I have read some of these opinions and what kind of things are there and what they think, and I have seen some of these what they buy, these different armies, and this just I don't really see, for example, why Poland will need to order something like 100 Apache helicopters. I just don't understand it. As in my opinion, they could just keep it and buy something else, but that's just me. They could, for example, skip those and buy like something like 1000 JASM, for example, for cruise missile. And always in the European point of view, it's of course that this Poland, that is now a big spender, and they are building a big army. They made these deals with South Korean these producers to get them cheap, but in very usual sense that would be very advantageous for Europe to start to develop their own product line and to have lots of this kind of cooperation and make these kind of initiatives, for example, that they already have this kind of system, that this European Parliament is having this kind of different kind of funding systems, that they could partially fund some kind of orders to protect and advance the product development, and this industry of this defense industry would be, in my opinion, important to invest very heavily in European defense industry, start to develop research and develop these different kind of futuristic systems, and to make them that you do it together in the same way that in these Eurocopter platforms or something else, that not like that every country is developing their own missile, but more like to group together with especially these most prominent ones like Sweden and United Kingdom and Germany and France and Italy and Spain, and these kind of countries to group together, and if any other smaller country have something to contribute, and then start to develop these future platforms for European industries together, even to establish these kind of joint companies to develop them for, and to start to in the future look forward to these big orders from European countries in a similar way that there was these Eurocopter orders in the past, that every European country, that how many you take, and then even to get these cheaper prices that are very approachable for even these poorer European countries, that they can approach them because they are a bit funded by the Europe Parliament already, that they have this kind of this thing going on, that they want to up their own industry, their own logistic system, their own this kind of to make it more compatible with Europe. That of course to generate it as a NATO compatible in the first place. And I am this kind of in feeling that this NATO compatible, in my opinion, doesn't necessarily mean that you have to always use Windows or something American softwares. You can as well do your own software, for example Unix based or something that is compatible with this American, but you have to approach them to develop them in together, to make it in this mindset that hey, we want to have our own system, that we can have our own development in it, that we can have our own maintenance and logistics and everything, that we want to make fully European armies that are fully produced in Europe, and to make it cooperative with Americans, to maybe even do something like technology share, and this kind of cooperation in it, that the Europeans are not exactly very bad in some areas, that it's would of course benefit Europe a lot, but it can also benefit the states to do this kind of cooperation, and it would strengthen the NATO as a whole. As in the NATO don't just need to be one strong America and then different places that leads the security guarantees from the America. It can also be that the European front is very strong in itself and they have their own logistic, their own system, their own catalog, as in to speak. But what it means for Americans, for example, very easily they start to see it as a competitor. And then when you go to the market outside NATO, they will have to compete then with European systems. Then European systems are, do you want to have this Euro missile or do you want to have this JASSM missile? And then this European says we can keep this a bit cheaper for you. And this is a bit as much good, you know. And then these foreign buyers, like something like Saudi Arabia or whatever, who buy lots of these kind of things, they will start thinking, which I buy. And then you have to compete. And then it comes to that kind of situation that is not that probably sought after in America, because they of course want to always have the best platforms. And for that reason, they might not go to this kind of cooperation, because they would want to develop their own platform and make it the best. And then, but it would be really kind of in my opinion, a bit, I don't know what it would be if they would say that no, you cannot develop your own, for example, software infrastructure, that you have to use this Windows infrastructure, for example. And then the Europeans would be like, but we would very much want to develop our own, because we have our own ideas, and we have our own ideas in this artificial intelligence, we have our own ideas of this autonomous system, and we have our own product line. So we would like to make it fully developed, because this importance of these software systems, they will start to matter more in the future, when this artificial intelligence and these autonomous capabilities will start to be more developed, and they can even start to dictate this military industry. So that what kind of missile do you have, and then you first thing in your mind what you think is not what kind of warhead is it. You first think at what kind of autonomous capabilities that missile is produced for. And that's basically it. And there are this kind of developments, and the further it goes, I see, the more it matters what do you launch, and the less it matters from where do you launch it with. It's only obviously, if you want to launch it in sea, you have to put it in submarine or ship, or even some long-range aircraft. And obviously, if you want to launch it from air, you put it in, for example, fighter jet. And obviously, if you are able to launch it from ground, you have very much options, like something like HIMARS or infantry fighting vehicle, or something like even a foot soldier kind of a carriage system, depending on how small or large the system is. But in these missiles, I would see it very prominent to have this kind of a multi-use platform where you can launch these various type of missiles. Don't matter what. You develop a new missile, you just develop it in your mind that it can be launched with this modular multi-launch system. Multi-launch system can be very much the name. You don't need to say rocket system or missile system, because you can launch rockets and missiles with it. Multi-launch system is a very good and fitting name for this kind of a vehicle that can shoot basically all missiles that you can just fit in any cassette. And this you just change the cassette like in the HIMARS, and then you're just good to go. They have their own in South Korea, this Junmo, the Poland also, they ordered a lot of them. But these Europeans have lots of these kind of capabilities that they don't have now. They don't have long-range air defense, they don't have ballistic defense, and they don't have as developed cruise missiles as Americans, and I think they also miss this kind of a heavy rocket launcher. They only use this American version, this M2070 mostly, and now have ordered HIMARS. So they don't have their own. And that's why the Poland probably wanted the Junmo. And it's also the price. They are very cost effective, these short current systems. So this was my video about these things, and there are more to say in this subject, of course, and I always like this Merkava design, that you can travel troops with it, and in the future it can mean that these troops that you are traveling, that you can, it's basically an armored personnel carrier, that is a tank, because they install the engine in the front, and in the back of the tank there is a place for 6 soldiers. They can as well control drones with the tank. So there can be 6 drones circling the tank when it goes and seeking ambushes. There is a person with an ANLO, or person with some kind of RPG-7, try to, or Panzerfaust or anything, to shoot them. Okay, then you just explode the drone on their face, because you control the drone, that you like this that the tank can shoot the drone from this 40mm smoke discharger slots. You can install drones to them. They just shoot the drones, and you start to control the drones from the soldiers. That the tank raid would have to focus on it. The soldiers that you are carried with the tank can control the drones. I very much like the idea that you have a tank where there is different kind of capabilities, and they have closing weapon system, as in something like 25mm, this kind of a closing weapon system, autonomous, artificial intelligence controlled automatic turrets that shoot missiles down with this kind of airburst munitions, small airburst munitions, this automatically to protect the tank. And then they have this kind of a self-defense system that launch these cassettes that shoot these pellets in a shotgun way if they got too close with this threat. And then they would have these 6 drones circling the tank all the time, because the soldiers inside the tank are controlling the drone. They can monitor the surveillance and seek ambushes, because if you just go blindly with the tank to some road, there can very easily be someone that shoots the tank with some anti-tank weapon. And you can even detect something like these off-road mines. There are very dangerous off-road mines that shoot these explosive formed penetrators to the tanks when you miss them. These drones can even detect those, that there is a mine. Stop, to say to this crew, these soldiers that you are carrying with. So it's a very good capability that there are, for example, 6 first-person view drones flying over the tank and carrying scouting the surveying the area. And I really much like these kind of ideas. I think my ideal tank would have the tank gun, then it would have 2 autonomous in the sides of the turret, this 25mm, for example, these airburst ahead munition autocannons that are completely autonomous. Crew don't have to control them. They just shoot aerial threats, missiles, of anything that come towards the tank, and then have the self-protection system, and then carrying 6 soldiers that use drones to survey. That's a very good combination. And when the soldiers can be assault trained, and then they can go out from the back of the tank, and then you have suddenly a group of 6 soldiers that can divide it to 2 groups of 3 and go there to protect the tank as an infantry. That you carry infantry the tank. It's ingenious idea, in my opinion. It's way better that you cannot. So the Merkava tank, I really much like the design. It's very, very good. And there are some very good thoughts behind it. So, but you can even do it. Merkava won't have these closing weapon systems. It only have this trophy, this self-protection system, but you can up it to have these autonomous turrets on both sides of the tank, of the bigger turret, that they can rotate and shoot any targets in any direction. It would be very advantageous that you can shoot with rapid fire this airburst kind of shotgun bullet, airburst rounds, these targets that are coming to you. Even a cruise missile or a small diameter bomb or anything can be destroyed from afar, something like 1-2 kilometers for this, with these autocannons that you carry. And if you have 2 of them, even better, because you can fit 2 of them to tank. They can be in both. You don't have to have a human control there. The crew is inside the tank. There is no one controlling these because they are autonomous. They have artificial intelligence in them. It's very old. It's from 70s. Phalanx gives the artificial intelligence, but it's more developed now. And now you can have it with these Airbus ammunitions. So this kind of capabilities I see as a very prominent in future. That you have this kind of assault brigades that use these kind of tanks, and the assault teams are carried by the tanks. You don't need to have infantry fighting vehicles. You can only have tanks if you want. That you can have a tank brigade that only have tanks. Because for example, some tank brigades, they are panzer brigades, they have tanks that don't carry soldiers, and then they have infantry fighting vehicles that carry soldiers. For each team, they have two platforms, a tank and an infantry fighting vehicle. But you can skip those infantry fighting vehicles and just install those troops to the tank, and then make them control drones inside the tank. It's this kind of a modularity and this kind of a streamlining, I think it's very prominent, and this European, this kind of a, and that already exists. The Israel Merkava tanks are built like that. That's not some made-up design. That's functional, already used, and no one else uses this but Israel. And Israel weapon systems are they are clever, to say. There are some of their designs are, in my opinion, better than in other places, and they are in a similar way than South Korea. They are cheaper also. They are not that much worse, or they can even be better or the same quality. That, for example, that's the reason why this also Finnish army, they favor a lot of South Korean equipment. They have the South Korean mobile artillery, and then they have these Israel. Now they wanted to have more Israel air defense, and the Eurospike is a very success. This Israel Spike anti-tank missile, and they produce it in Germany with the Eurospike name, with license. But Europe can also, they are developing their own this kind of a system, this anti-tank missile system. They are the very basic what you need, and all these infantry capabilities like night vision goggles or this night vision capabilities and anti-tank missiles and these anti-air missiles and these different kind of very good weapons. And one weapon I especially like that is, in my opinion, very represented in many armies is a grenade machine gun. This grenade machine gun is it's devastating in my opinion, and it can also be used as indirect fire. It's a strong asset to have grenade launcher machine gun and lots of ammunition for it. And it also can be streamlined. For example, as Sweden do it, they only have 2 ammunition. They only use 2. They use the all-round ammunition that have 3 effects. It has shrapnel effect, it has the explosion or fire effect, and then it has this explosive or penetration effect. For all this effect, and then they have this dedicated anti-armor of this grenade that they use these infantry fighting vehicles or armored person carries with, or basically anything. But they usually probably use only this one multi-use that have these 3 different use, and it's very dangerous. If there is shrapnels, there is explosion, and there is a penetrator that you can just install it and just start to use rapid fire 40mm grenades with some platform, and those are dangerous. Also, I would say. And to have some, for example, you can have this kind of periscope targeting systems to them that you can, for example, park them in somewhere and then sit behind some rock or sit behind some kind of a environment, or then go in these trenches, and you are not visible in the same way that you can control anti-tank guided missiles so that you are not seen. They only see the weapon, and you launch the weapon inside the trench, that you are not vulnerable to the enemy fire. That if you can, for example, use a grenade machine gun like this, grenade launcher machine gun, it will become very fast something that they probably won't like. In my opinion, it's a stronger asset and more dangerous asset, and more like this kind of all-round use asset than these heavy machine guns. The heavy machine guns, they are not bad, but these grenade launchers are, in my opinion, represented in many armies, and some armies don't even have them. in this modern times. It's perplexed me a lot because it's something that if I would start to pick my equipment for this kind of infantry or larger groups of infantry, I would not go without granted machine gun. It's so devastating in my opinion. It's someone can correct me if they are at the same mind in this or other things that I say, and or do I have it right, this right, or I'm the right path of this thinking that what would be cost. I always think this cost effectiveness, that the cost effectiveness is especially what I try to think about when I think military subject, and this cost effectiveness, what I think about is I am not that expert in training or any kind of this kind of more this human resource elements, but this more like this equipment cost effectiveness is something that I am very much fond of and think a lot, because it's kind of a bit of my specialty in my research of this subject, and I am interested in the subject, and I have been interested in the subject for a long time. So this I have read a lot of things about the subject, very basic information, and developed this kind of my own view of how I see things in this area. Another thing that I do like is these autonomous autocannons, because the more the artificial intelligence will develop, and they already have these very prominent ahead burst munitions that can even have some kind of rocket propeller motors that can change direction in the air and follow if something like missiles try to evade them, they can follow them and explode them with these pellets. So I really much like these autocannons that are now not only the small autocannons and infantry fighter, but this, for example, 40mm infantry vehicle autocannon. But I have read an article where the United States are pondering that they want to up it to 50mm in their future fighting vehicle. But this 40mm is, I think, plenty good, and at least that now and these 76mm are used also in these automelars are used in this ground vehicles, and they are very good even now. I don't know how can you do it better. You install 76mm automelar autocannon to this kind of air defense closing weapon system autonomous road. You can park it somewhere and then you can just leave. Just leave it there. At the same time, you can have 40mm similar platform that you use as infantry fighting vehicle. You just park it there, you unload the troops, and even the crew that are driving it. You only need 2 crews, one for the driving, one for the turret, and then you just can leave. You can leave it without the crew. If it gets destroyed, no casualties, because only the platform is destroyed. The platform is completely controlled by artificial intelligence. You can leave it there and just exit the vehicle. And you can only enter the vehicle if you have to move it to the place it to be. And that's also very convenient. They already have it like that. And it's functional. They use it. And it's only Italy uses it, not the army, I think. And then this 76mm gives it more punch. It has lots of punch, this 76mm automelar, these Airbus monitors. And then in their army, in their navy, they will install 127mm automelar. They are devastating. I really like them. They can use Vulcan rounds in them with more than 120km range. Think about it. It's 120km range. They are just pummel you with rapid fire. It's 90, I think almost 90 rounds in minutes. It's 1.5 rounds each second that they're pummeling you from 120mm range. But of course these Vulcan rounds are probably not used like that. They are used as something like single shot or few shots bursts, because they are expensive and they are this kind of guided rocket propeller rounds. They are not that like common to say. But these common rounds with of course shorter range, that you can pummel something with 127mm artillery with this shrapnel or this kind of high explosive munitions, which are not it's higher caliber than this legendary 120mm caliber artillery, and it's plenty bad already, and you can use 90 times in minute. How many times you can shoot with 120 mm field gun? You probably need a whole battery of them, and you still won't shoot 90 times, probably. The field of fire, the rate of fire can very much be something like, I don't know, how many? 6? You shoot 6 times. They should shoot 90 times, these automelars. They should the same amount than 15 normal 122 mm field guns, and they have higher range and they have stronger firepower. So what can it mean if you install like 4 of them in say ship, this kind of destroyer type, so this kind of a little bit, or even 3? It can mean that the Pummel, 4 of them would mean that you can unleash like this 360 rounds in minute, and then you have a fleet of 4 of them. It will become how much? 1,420. It's more than one, something like 1,200 rounds in a minute. And once you start to pummel something with that, imagine 127 mm high explosive rounds are suddenly raiding towards you. In 1 minute they can unleash 1,200 of them. It completely annihilates some area. It's like, it's very dangerous, I would say. I'm very in a mind that you should not underestimate what kind of power the automelaras can unleash and what their usefulness is. And it's a European system. It's fully Italy developed, I think, and the company is Italian. It can very much represent the top of what the whole world can offer. I am very unsure can even United States offer something better. They are of course developing something like railgun, but it's not like this deployed or deployable. There are problems with the energy use for it, that they use too much energy. They have to somehow manage to make it more cost efficient than. But if they can, and they will start to install these railguns, it will revolutionize everything, because it's so devastating. It's just something. It's absurd weapon. But they don't have it yet functional, or at least they don't deploy it. So this automelara is reality. It's already functional, like I told you, or at least I envision that it should. That if you have enough of these 127 mm, it's very bad. And even one of them, this 127 mm, if you unleash 90 rounds in a minute, it will develop in some area where you will unleash it. It will become really like not a thing that you want to receive. As in, if you are supporting this kind of a shore bombardments or some near shore bombardments with this your navy, then this 127 mm autometers can become something that they really don't like to receive. This that they can just basically this they substitute a field gun battery basically. This allow this one to that. So they are that dangerous. They rapid fire this capable of it. This 76 mm have a rapid fire of something like 120 rounds a minute, but I suppose this land version can have a bit less. I am unsure, because the machinations in this navy version can be larger and more powerful. I'm not really unsure, but these frigates that use these autocannons, these higher caliber autocannons, they can also carry a lot of ammunition. So they can, if they really want to go for that kind of mission, that they go to the shore bombardment mission, it can really much be a very bad news for anyone in there. And these Vulcan rounds, they can still shoot these single shot, for example, precision guided rounds to 120 kilometers. They are precision guided, so they can even probably shoot them on moving targets. So they can or launch them any kind of precision. This similar than anything. This precision guided 155 mm, but not as destructive, because it's a bit smaller caliber, but still the machine is more powerful, so it suited probably for that reason. I suppose it should it from later. I start to babble different kind of things, but I have already spoken about these automaras, but I really think that these I am that kind of person that is not that sold on these laser systems, because I somehow believe that they can possibly be countered and there can be some weaknesses in them, and they become more common, that will then be taken in a similar way that these maritime patrol helicopters that I say can very much get their wings destroyed by this some kind of a underwater air defense missile. So in a similar way, there can be something that will make them more redundant in future, these laser systems, even they would be very efficient now, but they have also very limited ranges. These uses, they are this kind of a very specific thing to have, laser systems. It sounds very cool and it's very interesting and it's very awesome that they exist. It's something that I wouldn't believe that they could have been pulled off, but they really done it. That we are living in a time frame when humans have legit laser weapons that really do what they do. You wouldn't guess it. If you go for 20 years in the past, you wouldn't probably guess that after 20 years they are actually using military lasers that are actually functional. Because it was seen as something like scientific fiction thing that is something functional when we are in the space, some kind of a Star Wars scenario or something, but no, it's actual modern day thing now. So you can never know what kind of things they will develop, but I suspect that lots of this research and development in these weapon systems will go towards this artificial intelligence and these autonomous capabilities. And this also strengthens my view of these redundant, that these attack helicopters are going to see as not as important as they are now, and there can be lots of other reasons for that too, but I really much suspect so. And this video was about this streamlining these platforms and what you can envision the future armies look like, and the idea of this, that these European industries would start to make their own catalog and have more this kind of a integrate together. I wouldn't even say it would be bad to do some kind of fusions, that some European companies would, for example, fuse. For example, in Nordics, they would very much like to, this Koningsberg and Patria, to fuse with Saab, but Saab is so much above them, so that the Saab would be very hard pressed to win them in negotiations to start to make some kind of fusion. Because the Patria and Königsberg is not even fused. They just made some kind of a government-to-government deals and sold some stocks or something, which was, I think, Norway got a better deal in it, I suppose. But they did what they did, and the fusion of Nordic defense industry as a whole, as a one unit, would be really awesome. It would be really awesome to do. That they would become one company and do all development together. It would really much benefit Norway and Finland, because this Saab is so awesome. They are very, very good company. It's like many times better than Koningsberg and Patria even combined. So that's probably the reason that they might not want to do it. They would most likely need to have some kind of at least a lot of monetary like compensation to do something like this, and then something like that they hold, for example, the majority of the company or something like that. That they probably would want to do something like that. That it would not be even trade. It cannot be. Saab is so good. And then this. But it would be very nice to have this kind of cooperation and this kind of fusions within the Europe, that these different kind of companies, they will fuse. This Finland, Sweden fusion companies, they are not unheard of. They are very common. They have Stora Enso, they have different kind of things. TeliaSonera or what was it? I don't even know is it a fusion, but Finland and Sweden have been known to fuse their companies very much. So it might be a good road to start to unify this European defense industry. And there is also this idea that I have been thrown many times in these videos and many times thought about it, that there could also be this raw material ordering mechanism, that all of these companies that will use raw material could do it together. For example, if European defense companies want to, meaning such to order tungsten, for example, and Wolfram, it is this hard material that is used in many to kinetic penetration, and it's very prominent material in defense industry. Another is, for example, tantalum, because there is, in my knowledge, there are not much production in Europe. There is tungsten production, I suppose, in Portugal, but that might not be enough for all of these needs. And then if they need to have to do this kind of larger wholesale order of tungsten or tantalum or something like that, it could mean that if all of these companies will negotiate under the European Parliament as a whole, they can have a smaller unit price. And to have smaller unit price on the very important raw materials that you will need will help your industry, of course, because you get them cheaper. So why not just order them together as Europeans? Why all companies need to order them individually? Then they pay a higher premium because it's a smaller order. So you have a more leverage to negotiate with the supplier if you have higher amount of money to order with. It's a very common sense. And this, what other prominent minerals could be that they need is probably some kind of a rare earth minerals to produce this kind of optics, for example, to produce optics for this night vision equipment or sensors or anything like that. If there is any this kind of this raw material that is not that common, for example, there is a bit probably small reason to do it with steel, but you might as well do it with steel, that you just order steel with a lot of steel, for example, at once to Europe and then distribute it within Europe after it have arrived. That you make one order in each year to everyone can tell that how much steel do you want, and then to ask from different kind of producers that this is the price that we would want to buy this, can you provide, and then to compete them that and pick the one that provides the needed material cheapest. I think that would be, in my opinion, the clever way to conduct business. As in, because Europeans have this mechanism, they can group together and show unity, and then they all can benefit from it. That they do produce together, they make logistics together, they make maintenance together, research development together, and then they even buy the raw materials together if they need to buy it from outside of their own area. If Europe don't produce, for example, tantalum, then you can buy them together to negotiate cheaper price, because they are willing to lower the price if the order is so big, because they do want the order, the producer, because it's very important order for them. Annually, this order that would be like one of the biggest order, if not the biggest, to them. So they very much want it. So this was the video for me to ponder again in the English language this military subject. For especially this streamlining the things and this what the weapon platform represents and why I am not that fond of these attack helicopters, because I see them as something so expensive that can be compromised too easily, I suspect, and can also be kind of substituted with different kind of things, because the weapon that you launch will become more important than the platform, and these weapons that will become important can make the difference, not the platform.